What is cover three? In the simplest terms, cover three is a three deep defense with three defenders capping verticals and four underneath players playing within their zones. It can come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. It can even come in heavy match, which is basically like playing man, or pure vision to spot drop, which is what we call country coverages. So let's dig in to the main ways people are playing cover three in the modern game. Before we begin, let's talk about divider rules. Now, the one thing about divider rules is that you hear them about them all the time, but you get a little image like this, but then nobody really ever explains what this means. All this is for the corners. Are you aligning inside or outside of your receiver? And so if the ball's in the middle of the field, your divider line is going to be 1 yard inside the numbers. So on the top of the numbers, 1 yard inside. If the receiver gets inside this, we are going to be outside alignment. If the receiver gets outside this divider, we are going to be inside alignment. Now, remember, we have a safety in the middle of the field. This is closed post coverage, so nothing is allowed to be here. So what these dividers really are telling is for the corners is, hey, we want to funnel everything into the post unless the receiver is already outside, and then we want to go ahead and take advantage of our 12th man, which is the sideline. So hopefully, if you've ever heard of divider rules or this is a divider for the corner, this is exactly what it means. You have dividers for the overhangs, but that really depends on whether you're playing match cover three or you're playing zone cover three, which we will get into here in just a second. In its simplest form, cover three is relatively easy. We're going to have three defenders that are going to play on top of the coverage. From there, we're going to have two seam defenders and we're going to have two hook defenders. So as you can see, we have a three deep with a four under, but there's a little bit of nuance. And we'll get into the nuance as we get into the specific types of cover three. But for this particular, what we're looking at is cover three is a whiteboard coverage. We have X's on the board and we're going to put people where they are. Remember, we have two safeties, we have two corners. So we can put the safety anywhere we want. For instance, if we get cover three and we are afraid of a lot of crossers, we could put our safety in the three up. Now, that would then allow him to take that crosser. So what is a three up? Let's go through these. So a seam essentially is we are going to protect the seam of the defense, which is going to be this vertical area here between that. Really, usually it's the hash, but it's the hash and the numbers. That's where we're going to protect it. These hook drops are going to protect the hash, and then we are going to have a safety protect the post. Anytime you have three receivers to a side, you need to be able to have a three up defender. Remember, in this cover three, you are not going to be able to match verticals, right? So you want to, if you get, let's say we get something like this, we are going to need to have somebody that's going to take the number three receiver up, meaning he is going to work to the vertical. What we don't want is to have a bunch of guys sitting here near the line of scrimmage. And when typically you see cover threes get beat, it's because they don't have a vertical hook, whether it's 2x2 or it's 3x1. Really, the one thing that you need to remember is the weak hook defender is going to be your vertical hook drop. He is dropping as deep as he possibly can, where your strong hook is going to sit low. How can you create layers in cover three? That's the way you do it. The last guy, so if we don't have a number two receiver over here, we don't have a slot, and he's on the other side, this is where it changes. He is now the first to the flat or the fourth crosser. So if we end up getting something where the back goes away, we get a shallow route coming back, he would be the fourth receiver. We never worry about the fifth receiver. He's taken by the corner. So this is where you get this. So if you are ever talking to somebody that runs cover three or you want to understand cover three, understand that your two overhangs are going to be your seam droppers. If it's cover three, he's building a wall to not let anything hit the flat. Your hook drops, your strong hook is low, your weak hook is high, and then you have your umbrella in the back between the corners and the safeties. Now let's dig in a little bit deeper into different ways that we can move that safety around. Primarily, you're going to have a down safety and a deep safety or a post safety. So the down safety is typically going to be the one that plays down. He's your box safety. He's going to be the one that is going to play on the linebacker depth. So here we just have sky coverage, right? Sky is a kind of a universal term that we are going to drop him weak. Okay. Now, where it gets confusing is what number do you use? So if we use cover 3, that could be that we are going to rotate strong. I've had people say 5. I've had people say 7. And then I've also had people just tag it to where, hey, if I say 3 sky, that means we're going weak rotation and the boundary safety is going to drop into the seam. So here, I like to always draw it up against 3x1. That way you really get that first to fourth look. It's a 2x2 is relatively simple. It's 3x1 where you start having to game plan how you're going to do this. So in this, our first to fourth defender is going to be our boundary safety. Our weak hook drop or our 3-up is going to be our will linebacker. So he's going to want to get vertical right here. Our strong hook, we've got our seam defender and our overhang and our seam defender here. But because he doesn't have anybody directly present in the seam, he now is our first to fourth defender. From there, we get cross, right? Or insert or hooker, any way that you want to name it. There's a million different names, but all it really means is we are taking the down safety and we are putting him in the weak hook because we want to defend ourselves from 3x1 or any kind of cross. You can even do this in 2x2. A lot of teams, especially in the NFL, that are starting to play from a 2-high shell are doing this because it looks a lot like quarters. That's why I put this here. It looks just like quarters. We can play here. We can run our little whatever it looks like. Maybe we're running some stubby or we're running some sort of a trips coverage this front side, knowing that any kind of crosser, we're going to have that cut off, which means our will now is going to be first to fourth. So if that back were to go to the flat, the will would take it. If the back goes front side, he's going to post up and he's looking for any mesh route. That's making sure that he can stay deep. This is kind of the modern cover 3. We're weak rotation. We're putting the safety as the 3-up defender so we can take that crosser across. We can take any vertical, and we're not pressuring our linebackers, right? Because we don't want linebackers defending receivers. This is an easy way for offenses to get a receiver on a back if we're going to be playing kind of that sky coverage where we're dropping the safety in weak. Again, we're not worried about the backside. Everything is front side for this coverage. From there, we have what's really a popular early down coverage, which is 3 buzz. So all buzz means is we are putting our safety into the strong hook. We're pushing everybody over. Our will is now the first to fourth. Our Mike is now the 3-up. So he's the one that's got to get vertical. Our safety is low. Our Mike is high. And again, this is what coach, but they're still putting a linebacker in conflict. He's now got to take vertical. This is where the match versus zone comes in. There's 2 different ways to run it, and we haven't even got there yet. So we're just explaining right now what these X's on the whiteboard are doing. So again, this is 3 buzz. We're dropping the strong safety. So this is strong rotation. And before we go any further, what is strong versus weak? Strong means passing strength. Typically, that's going to be set off the nickel in the modern game. So the passing strength versus the non-passing strength. If we are weak rotation, we are rotating away from the passing strength. If we are strong rotation, we are rotating into the passing strength. Here, we're 3 buzz. We're going strong rotation into the passing strength, and we're bumping everybody over. Mike is now the 3-up. Will is now the first to fourth. Another one that's used that looks just like quarters is I call it swap. And essentially it's just like strong sky, right? Like we're just moving the safety outside the overhang, packing the box. We're shifting everybody over. So again, hopefully you're noticing cover 3. draw, if you have a whiteboard or you have some paper, draw 4 X's on the bottom, and you can move these guys anywhere you want. That's the beauty of this coverage. And that's how, cover three is the universal coverage. Probably the first coverage that everybody learns is just because it is what it is. You're packing the box, you're capping verticals outside, you're closing the post, but there's a lot more nuance to it. So in the modern game, if we want to play too high, we can pack the box, we can move him down. This little swap is really popular with pressure. So if we send the nickel, we get into what's called a fire zone or dog coverage. We have 3 underneath. We're still playing our cover 3. We're just one less hook drop. So this guy's got to get deep. We still have our seam defenders on both sides. This is, since we're losing the nickel, we would move him down. But if you wanted to pack the box in a situation like this, or let's say this guy is tight, swap would be a really easy way to do this. So again, we have our seam, strong hook, weak hook, which is our 3 hook, and then our first to fourth defender on the backside. If our tight end were to shift, how would that change? If the tight end shifts over here, our will linebacker now becomes that seam defender. We still have our vertical hook drop. What's you can call, I had a coach call it 2 up one time, and I thought that was great. So we have a 3 up and a 2 up. All that really means is your weak hook better get vertical. We have our strong hook who is low, and then we have our other seam defender that's outside. So even if we get the tight end to move, everybody's just shifting over. Everybody knows it doesn't really change anything for the will. He would still take first to flat. If he would go away, he would still take fourth receiver. So the only thing that changes is we have a direct vertical threat. He may have to carry that. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of the different versions of cover 3. So probably the most prominent at the lower levels is a spot drop cover 3. What's interesting is that the lower levels, probably like your peewee leagues, this is typically the easiest coverage. You just put it in. It's spot drop cover 3. You still can defend the run because you have 8 near the box. At the higher levels, you play a lot of spot drop behind pressures, or even because it's played in the middle of the field. So you kind of have an idea of where people are going. In this, it really, the difference is how you're going to play these overhangs, right? So in a spot drop cover 3, it means exactly what it is. We are cutting to a spot, and then we are going to get there, and then I'm going to play vision off of it. Right. So if it's the ball's on the hash, I'm going to drop to the middle of the field for my strong hook. Remember, we've got our nickel over here. Weak hook is going to be 2 yards outside the hash. Our overhangs are going to drop at a 45 with vision. If anything were to come to the flat, we would then want to play on top of it. If we get any kind of seam, we want what's called bang to buzz. I'm going to try and bang it on my way across. I want to create some friction, and then I'm going to buzz. This is why in spot drop, these guys have to get to their spot and they have to go. And the corners now are what you would call an overlap player. So the worst case scenario in cover 3 is if you get 2 verticals to the field. So the nickel would want to be inside, bang the buzz, and then continue to work on his 45, as the corner now has to work the apex. Remember, we have a post defender here. So he knows, again, I just need to make sure I'm working the middle of my unit. We are trying to force, just like you would in quarters, you're trying to force that outside and deep, that low percentage throw. By playing that, if I see the ball, I can overlap. Typically in cover 3, where you get beat is the whole shot right here in the seam. So as soon as you get that bang to buzz release, that quarterback's trying to throw in between the corner and the safety. Again, on the same thing, if we get 2 verticals here, we want to bang to buzz, through here as we work. Corner's going to apex. It's a little bit easier into the boundary. It's a lot harder into the field. And so this is what you would call country cover 3. Is that people are dropping to a spot. At the lower levels, it's typically 10 to 12. At the higher levels, it's normally around 15 to 17 because everything just gets pushed a little deeper. A great example of this is just kind of where you see everybody just at the snap of the ball. You get those overhangs cutting at a 45 and everybody dropping to the spot in the middle. It's just, you see it, everybody settles at their landmark, and then they are watching the quarterback. And that's exactly what spot drop is. But the problem is, against some offenses or against really accurate quarterbacks, you're essentially playing 7-on-7. They're just looking for the space. Receivers are trying to find the space. They know where it is, and then they're just going to sit it down. And that's typically why spot drop is ran either behind pressure or it's ran as a changeup. We're so match heavy that we're just going to throw in a country cover 3. So now all your cover 1 beaters, they're just running to spots, right? And then they're seeing that, okay, well, we just matched it with our defenders. Vision match is a little bit different. So we are going to play zone underneath. Our 2 inside guys probably are not going to change. What changes is we now have this skiff player. So it's seam to curl to flat. So we have a very systematic thing. If I get attacked in the seam, so for instance, if the nickel here, if I get a vertical alignment, right, and I get this vertical stem, okay, I'm going to protect the seam. The moment he deviates in, he deviates out, he bends it back inside, I'm going to then work to the curl. And then the last thing I'm going to go down to is the flat. So even if I get the slot to push outside right now, let's say they just run a flat route, speed out, I would zone over that, protecting that seam, protecting that curl, let the ball bring me down. So we're getting into a little bit, that's that next step. So we're country coverage, we're in spot. That next step is going to be, we're just kind of zone, right? We're just getting to a zone. We're matching just a little bit, but it's just vision because we're getting to our spot. We're playing with vision. I'm still reading the quarterback. If I feel him push vertical, I'm going to sit right on top of him. And then as soon as he deviates, I'm just going to release him in. And so that's where you get the difference. In spot drop, it's bang to buzz. If he misses me on the way through the seam, I'm not worried about it. That's the corner's job to overlap. I've got to work at my 45 to get to my landmark. I'm not worried about anybody else. If I can put hands on them, great. If I can't, don't worry about it. That's just part of the process, right? And so this is where it becomes a little bit different. Now you can see we're starting to tighten down. What's the problem areas in cover 3? The problem areas in cover 3 are going to be your seams. So we're protecting the seams a little bit longer. We're going to hang there a little bit longer. If we get attacked vertically, we are going to hang there before we move on to that curl and then the flat area. Now, hybrid cover 3 is taking it one step further. We're going to have a match side and we're going to have a zone side. And typically the way you see this is, where is the safety leaving? So if the safety right here, we're rotating weak. So we're already there. We're rotating weak. Okay. Here's our nickel. Okay. Here's our star. We're rotating weak. We've gone down. If I'm leaving, we're going to match that side. So I'm playing man. Now, can they check the zone? Typically, if 2 and 3 are close together, they can check into a zone. If it's a traditional alignment like we have here, they're going to match it. What does match mean? The nickel has all of 2 up and he has all of 2 out. So even if we get that crossing route here, if we get this action, that nickel will stay on top, knowing that he's going to have a vertical hook defender away from him. So even though we have weak rotation, we're still getting that vertical hook. What does this mean over here? We're probably going to play more like a skiff than we are a bang to buzz. So we're going to hold that seam as long as we can. If we get a vertical here, we just want to hold that. We know we have a vertical hip player. If he goes out, I'm going to go ahead and zone over it. That corner now is trying to overlap on top of his unit. And so this hybrid, this is really where you see, I think more modern teams are playing some sort of a hybrid scheme, right? They're playing a man side, match side, where there are rules. So that way, even if we get a fast three, all fast three means is that the number three receiver pushes fast to the flat. We can still get this exchange. We don't get drained out by that. Drained out just means if we get this, the nickel doesn't push and then he pushes over. That would be more of our vision match. If we get a flat push, he's going to zone over it. I'm going to now work to my next guy. So that's kind of where we get that. In this hybrid set, we have a match side, we have a zone side. And I feel like that's really the kind of the most common way people are playing it. They're playing some sort of a hybrid so that they can match to the field with our pass coverage defender first. This is where divider rules really come in. Now the nickel knows I need to be outside until he gets wide. If he gets wide, then I can move inside. Now we're forcing everything out to our corner help. But again, here too, this is where you can start playing press cover three, where, hey, we know we're in a hybrid. This is a match side. I can go ahead and get in a press. It would be a soft press look, just like you would in quarters. So a lot of times the argument of cover three versus quarters, all cover three defenses have some sort of a quarters toolbox. I just showed you just illustrations of it, things that look like quarters, but they're really playing cover three. Those are quarters toolboxes so that we don't have defensive ends or jack backers carrying verticals of number two. We don't want that. So what do? We put a safety on top of it, and we have these quarters rules. You're still playing cover three, but it plays out a little bit more like quarters, which is going to muddy up that read for that quarterback. So again, hybrid, match side, zone side. I put these red boxes here because those are the danger areas of cover three, and we want to make sure that we protect those. Now, match cover three. This is Saban Belichick's match Rip Liz cover three. Now, why was this invented? Because everybody was running country cover three, and you get a guy like Dan Marino who, if you play country cover three, he's just playing 7-on-7. So there, unless you're getting a rush, he's just patting the ball. He's throwing to a spot. He's elite accuracy. We need to be able to do this. The other problem is everybody knows how to beat cover three at this point, right? So they know where the danger spots are. If you're going to skiff it, we're just going to make sure that we have these long benders and they just kind of bend underneath. So we're actually going to chase the backside of this post safety. I just want to cut underneath him and that. And so we get problems like that. In match cover three or Rip Liz, we can press, we can lock the corner. We can play three lock, which essentially just says, look, everybody's playing zone, but we're locking a corner. But if two goes up or out, the overhangs are going to take, even in 2x2. We don't have a zone side anymore. We're going to funnel the running back. If the running back goes weak, the Will's going to take it. Mike's going to be the vision drop. Okay, if the running back goes strong, now we have the Mike's going to take it. The Will's going to be the vision drop. If he stays in the down, these guys become vision droppers just like they would in a spot drop. So that's where we see this evolution, and hopefully you've seen the evolution. Everybody used to play spot drop. Then we play a little bit more vision match, right? We're going to protect the seams a little bit longer. Then we go to a match side to protect the field, zone side because we know we're probably going to get some switches into the boundary. Now it's like, look, man, we're getting a lot of four verticals. We're getting a lot of vertical pushes. We're getting a lot of things that are going into these voided areas. We need to be able to match. And so this is where that full on match. Now, the one way that is different is you can play man match or zone match, just like you can in quarters. And all that is what are we doing when we get mesh, right? If we get a mesh or we get these underneath routes like this, are we carrying them all the way across? Are we matching our guy? Or are we getting some sort of a switch off? And so this one, typically, if you get the slot to roll his hips early, under 5 to 7, that's when you get an undercall. Nickel would take that. Mike would then work. He would be carrying it back. Now, if he carries it back all the way across, remember, anytime that you run man match, you're essentially splitting the coverage. Is that these guys are going to defend these guys? these guys are going to defend these guys over here. And that's going to be the match, right? So if they cross, I'm taking them all the way across. Once I lock onto my guy and we've done our little match, because you could easily banjo these. Banjo just means, hey, we know we're probably going to get some switch. So, hey, if I get an in call, I'm going to give it to you, and then you just lock on and you go, and we're just jet streaming it. We're getting right behind the guy and we're going. So you can play. That's kind of the difference in this, is whether you play zone and you're allowing these guys. Yes, we're playing match heavy if they go vertical, but anything underneath, we're going to be able to switch out and do that. So again, we've gone from spot drop. We've gone to kind of that vision zone kind of match. We're getting more into the match world. Then we have a match and zone side. And then our last one is going to be that rip Liz, which is essentially we are playing man match on people or zone match on people. And again, you can lock the corner. You can play the corner off. You can play the more zone. You can play the more man. It just depends on philosophy. But hopefully what you took out of this is that, look, there are different iterations of these coverages, but at the end of the day, it still functions as cover three. Whether you're spot drop or you're a completely matchup defense, you're playing some version of cover three, and you're typically going to be able to move the safeties around. And so hopefully that simplifies cover three for you, and it answers that question. What is cover three?